Let's cite Abe Emerson for that beautiful photograph from Candia as well. Great
That's the
background.
wildlife refuge. Abe hasn't been here for a long time. It's named after him.
Oh, I
That's the
failed
name of
that
the
local
refuge.
knowledge question. Beautiful
Okay.
picture.
All right, Chris, you're on.
Sure, we'd like to welcome, first of all, for our spotlight feature, Pam Gilbert, who grew up in Chazy, New York. Pam fondly remembers conservation field days at the Minor Farm Elementary School, where the forestry and wildlife events were her favorites. Her AA degree from Paul Smith College is in forestry, and after that, she moved to New Hampshire. Her work as a bookkeeper for Wagner Woodlands and O'Brien Forestry Services led her ultimately to the Grafton County Conservation District, where she's been for 20 years now. Working with her Board of Supervisors and conservation partners, she says, is rewarding and ever-changing as new research and technology evolve. What a great reflection on somebody working like that, to cite 20 years worth of work and acknowledging technology is ever changing, as is the research. So thanks for your time with us this evening, Pam, and we're looking forward to your spotlight about Grafton County.
Okay, screen share going here. Sorry about that. Grafton County is located in the west central part of the state and bordered by the Connecticut River. It's the second largest county in New Hampshire, covering nearly 1/5 of the state. There are 40 towns in Grafton County, and Grafton County is mostly rural with 3 major economic centers: Littleton in the north, Plymouth in the east, and Hanover, Lebanon in the south. Dartmouth College and Plymouth State University are both located in the county. Grafton County has many natural and cultural resources, including White Mountain National Forest, 1/2 of which is in Grafton County, Franconia Notch State Park, Cardigan Mountain State Park, Squam Lake, and Newfound Lake. According to the 2017 Census of Agriculture, there were 462 farms in Grafton County, and that's 4th behind Rockingham, Hillsborough, and Merrimack. 73,575 acres are in farms in Grafton County, the largest number of acres of farms in New Hampshire. The average farm size in Grafton County was 159 acres. The average farm size in New Hampshire was 103 acres. Grafton County produced 12% of New Hampshire's agricultural sales and led the state in market value of livestock, poultry, and their products. There were 216 dairy farms in New Hampshire, 32 were in Grafton County. Now there are 15 active dairy farms in Grafton County. Grafton County was 85% forested, according to recent UNH cooperative extension data, with 57% of the county forest land in private ownership. Recognizing the value of productive farmland and the need to practice sound resource management while growing food has been at the heart of GCCD activities. Howard Townsend, Commissioner, New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, said it well and was quoted in the GCCD annual report in 1978. It has been said, and I agree, that good farmland is a finite asset. We must remember people multiply, acres don't. Grafton County accepted its first conservation easement in 1978, and we monitor 7 conservation easements annually. Grafton County has 2 pieces of soil health equipment that we rent out. One is a Casco Eco no-till drill, and the other is an Airway aerator. This equipment can be pulled by a smaller tractor, and it could be towed down the road by a pickup truck. And part of our aim was to have farmers be able to try it before they buy it. It's also smaller equipment, so it can accommodate irregular shaped fields and uneven terrain. We also have penetrometers available for landowners to come in and use and measure soil compaction. In 2020, we started the year with a great workshop in February on forestry for non-foresters. We discussed forest composition, realistic management goals, forest management strategies, managing a forest for timber production, maintaining and enhancing wildlife habitat, incorporating wildlife habitat enhancements in forest practices. We were assisted by Jim Frone, the UNH Extension County Forester, Tom Ebert, NRCS District Conservationist, and Ben Visiri, the National Wild Turkey Federation Forester, who's been working in New Hampshire. We also were able to advertise our Conservation District plant sale. Our plant sale is our biggest fundraiser of the year. We sell mostly bare root stock and native plants when available. We sell plants for environmental benefits like reforestation, wind protection, shade, bank stabilization, wildlife food and cover. In a normal year, we have a lot of volunteers that come and help us unpack the boxes and bundle the plants and sort the orders. But due to COVID this year, we did it ourselves. We missed our volunteers and certainly hope we see them next year. We had our first webinar, which was a winter high tunnel production webinar in July. And we talked a lot about different aspects of high tunnels, but Stacy Cooper, the NRCS soil conservationist, talked about a lot of the challenges. She has experience with winter growing in high tunnels, and it was a very good webinar. We were also assisted by Heather Bryant, the fruit and vegetable specialist in Grafton County. In October, we had our fall tour of conservation practices. Our first stop was a site visit to our supervisor, Rick Walling's farm in Bath. He worked with EQIP and NRCS to establish pollinator habitat. He prepared the seed beds in years 1 and 2, and then at the end of year 2, he planted a wildflower seed mix. And this is designed to provide pollen, nectar, and shelter throughout the season with something always in bloom. The meadow is now established, and Rick is following a maintenance plan and trying to keep ahead of the weeds that want to jump in. Our next stop was 2 dam removal sites in Haverhill on Clark Brook. These dams were no longer functioning for their design purpose. They were a barrier to fish and aquatic organism passage. And they were a public hazard due to the fact that they were no longer maintained. The dams were removed and the aquatic organism passage was restored by reworking the stream bed in the location of the former dams. I don't know if you can see the dam in the upper picture. It kind of goes diagonally across, and then the lower picture, there are a number of weirs that look very natural. Oops. Our next stop was at the Pine Mill site in North Haverhill. The project partners for these dam removals were NRCS, Connecticut River Conservancy, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the New Hampshire Dam Bureau and Wetlands Bureau, New Hampshire State Historic Preservation Office, and private landowners. The grist mill at the mill site was one of many, the last of many dams that had been at this site, and a historic marker was put up. You can see in the house, the dam is part of the foundation. They had to be really careful taking that dam out, not cause any damage to the rest of the house. But now 34 miles of Clark Brook are free of dams and open to fish passage. We want to thank Ron Rhodes, the Connecticut River Conservancy River Steward and project coordinator. Our last stop was looking at some of our demonstration project cover crop sites. This project funded through NHACD and NRCS. We wanted to continue working with Grafton County Farm to educate local farmers on innovative techniques to improve soil health, demonstrate the use of shorter day corn planted with a no-till planter, followed by cover crop mixes planted in early fall for maximum soil health benefits. We included a second farm in years 2 and 3 so that farmers could learn about transitioning to the system and what to expect. This agreement allowed interested farmers to observe the opportunities and challenges in Grafton County without risk to their farms. We also promoted the use of cover crop mixes developed by the New Hampshire Soil Health Partnership. The top picture is at the Grafton County Farm, and that is the winter soil builder mix this fall in October. And the picture below is the spring management mix at Knox Farm in Piermont. And finally, in a normal year, Grafton County Conservation District helps with the Ag in the Classroom School to Farm Day at the Rocks Estate. This picture is from a few years ago, but it's a really fun day. Our supervisors come out and we do some soil events with the kids and make soil profile cards. And we also pay the tuition for this event for the students attending through our Conservation Scholarship Fund. Thank you. Grafton County Conservation District has 2 pieces of soil health credentials, an airway aerator and Casco no-till seed drill. Any questions?
Thanks, Pam. I wasn't able to see the slides, so if you could share those. Yeah, if you could share those, that would be great.
Oh dear. They are on pretty much the same set of slides are on the NHACD website already from our annual report. They might be tweaked a little. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Our connection is slow and it often, I think that's why it doesn't fully connect. But I apologize.
Chris, you're muted.
There we go. We have some sort of some constellation is bothering all of the technology tonight. All right, we're settling at DeBona. Thank you very much. Matt DeBona is the New England District Manager for the New England. Something is going wrong here with this screen too. All right, there we go. The New England District Biologist for the Wild Turkey Foundation. Prior to this position, prior to this role, he was the waterfowl and upland game bird biologist for the Delaware Division of Fish and Game and Wildlife for 8 years. His BS degree in environmental science from the University of Vermont, and he has a MS in wildlife ecology from the University of Delaware. In his spare time, he enjoys the outdoors and exploring the woods, whether it's in hiking, fishing, or hunting. He lives with his wife and 2 children in Belchertown, Massachusetts. And this is a good use of Zoom because he's able to Zoom from wherever he is in the world to be with us here tonight without the travel and gas and weather concerns. So thanks very much for your time tonight, Matthew. We're glad to have your presentation.
I got real excited when he called me a manager, but then realized that I'm only a manager of 2 children and a dog. So, you know, I'll stick with the biologist for now. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Let's see. 1 second here. Figure this out. Okay, I got it.
At the bottom of the screen in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, does everybody see that? Yeah, good, okay. All right, well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I apologize that I couldn't attend a couple months ago, just had a slate of bad weather and had my power and internet go out, but really happy to be here tonight. You know, I want to take some time and tell you guys a little bit about who NWTF is, a little bit about turkeys, and then really what our priorities are for habitat and potentially how we could work together. I think you guys being sort of the conduits for working with a lot of private landowners in New Hampshire is there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for us to potentially work together. And I think for you guys to deliver technical assistance is going to benefit a wide variety of wildlife, including turkeys. So, a little bit about who we are. This is right. Okay, are you guys seeing the slides on the side or just the main presentation screen?
I see the main presentation screen.
Okay.
I don't know about other people. That's what I see. I presume it's the same for everyone.
Okay, perfect. All right. So basically, National Wild Turkey Federation, we are a nonprofit conservation organization centered around conserving wild turkeys and preserving our hunting traditions, most notably turkey hunting. We started back in 1973, and I'd be curious to hear, maybe from the group, but when I was a kid growing up in Massachusetts, I never saw a wild turkey. And it was really only as an adult that I started noticing them everywhere. And that's really because back in the 1970s, there were almost no wild turkeys in New England at all. The NWTF was founded in 1973. Back then, there was an estimated 1.3 million turkeys, but that really paled in comparison to when historically we knew we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 million turkeys. And the reasons for the declines were numerous. I mean, obviously, turkeys were a really critical food source during the colonization of pioneers, but really there were two big factors that drove turkey populations down, and one was the large-scale clearing of forests, and then the second was unregulated market hunting. And we started seeing a lot of turkeys disappear from the east, and especially in the northeast in the late 1800s. In fact, by my research, the last turkey in New Hampshire was recorded in 1854, and it stayed that way for a long time. All right, there were certainly some efforts during the 20th century to restore turkeys. They revolved initially around using pen-raised game farm birds, and they would raise those birds and release them. And unfortunately, those efforts failed spectacularly because those birds just had no innate instincts or learned behaviors to avoid predators, and so they simply weren't able to establish populations. They weren't able to survive the winters, forage for food, that sort of thing. So they started thinking about it. There were still turkeys around in the 60s and stuff in New York. And so a lot of the New England states started looking towards other states to donate some of their wild birds. And that's how it worked. In 1975, 25 birds were brought in from Allegheny State Forest in New York. Actually, Allegheny State Forest provided source birds for a lot of the birds in New England that we have. Once those populations started to take hold, and by that time, of course, a lot of the forest had grown back, populations took off. And instead of bringing in birds from outside the state, they just started catching birds and moving them around to different parts of New Hampshire. Those of you guys that know Ted Walsky or familiar with his career know that it was really sort of a one-man show in New Hampshire that restored turkeys back to New Hampshire. And so from really these humble beginnings of 25 birds, your turkey population in New Hampshire right now is hovering somewhere around 40 to 50,000 birds. They're doing phenomenal. Now I do have a little bit of video. It's not the best look at it, but this is from a capture we were doing last winter in Maine, where they were doing a research project. But the way that you catch turkeys is during the winter time. It's you bake them in with corn. Having the snow on the ground really helps. The birds are searching for food. They want to find stuff. So it's really easy to get them to congregate in front of this net. And basically it uses mortar charges to shoot a net over the birds. It's harder than it looks. And in this particular set that we did, we set up just getting light at like 6:30 and the birds came in at 6:45. I've never had anything happen that fast before, doing any kind of trapping or any type of field work. And we lost a couple birds, but no mortalities. It was fantastic. So you can kind of see how it happens. And despite how fast that net's moving, if your angle is too high or the wind's wrong and stuff, those birds are fast enough to react and get out of there. So, it's pretty neat. It's not something we do that much anymore. I want to take some time. So yeah, we got turkeys in New Hampshire. They're doing pretty well, but I want to spend some time talking about some of the life history of turkeys, particularly focusing on the breeding season, because that's when, you know, if there's a bottleneck in the annual life cycle of turkey, it's the breeding season. You know, turkeys are going to be going, you guys are going to be seeing large winter flocks pretty soon. In the springtime, those flocks break up. We see birds, you know, go into the traditional breeding season. You know, they're out there in the fields, they're strutting, displaying, you know, the males are trying to lure the females. And that's fine and stuff. The males go off and form bachelor groups, and the females really assume all the risk for breeding and creating and raising that next generation of turkeys. So turkeys, for those of you that don't know, nest on the ground. They begin selecting a nesting site in April. You know, we used to think that, man, these turkeys must be thinking really hard, finding the perfect spot that's got the right amount of cover, and it's located near an area where they can take the chicks later. And, you know, I think the more recent research has suggested that we don't know what turkeys are thinking when they're picking their nesting sites and stuff. They'd spend days picking these sites, and now with advances in GPS technology, we can follow these birds around every minute of every day. And it looks to us like maybe sometimes they're just winging it, or they're only start looking for sites, you know, within a few hours of laying an egg. So it's really kind of hit or miss, and we don't fully understand what they're looking for, but we know having a good understory, a good cover component is crucial to pulling off the nest. The hens lay about, you know, 1 egg per day. Their average clutch size is around 11 eggs. So mid-April, they're starting to lay eggs. The beginning of May is usually when we start to enter the peak of incubation. And they will sit on that nest for the next, you know, 26 to 28 days. I want to put this in perspective for you. The home range of a turkey, which is the amount of acres of habitat it uses throughout the year to sustain itself, averages around 1,000 acres, okay? During the breeding season, the nesting season, their home range shrinks down to 20 acres, okay? That's like having a 2,400 square foot house and having to live in the bathroom for 26 days. And you better have everything you need to survive for those 26 days in there with you in close reach. So having good nesting habitat is critically important. And the reason is the nesting season is when birds are most vulnerable to predation. The spring turkey hunting season, for those of you that don't maybe turkey hunt, is really focused on putting pressure on the male or bearded birds. Okay, we try to time our hunting seasons after the peak of breeding has occurred and nesting has started. We want those hens to grow more turkeys, and so we hunt all the birds during the spring. And if it wasn't for the hunting seasons, I think the males really wouldn't have a lot of pressure from predators. If you think about the habits of turkeys, they hang out in flocks, which helps them find predators and avoid being eaten. They have tremendous eyesight, and they have a really good field of view for their eyesight, and they tend to sleep in trees at night. So they're pretty well insulated from a lot of traditional predators. But the hens stuck on the ground, incubating that nest for 28 days, they are under threat from any number of predators that either want to kill the hen or bump the hen off the nest and consume the eggs. And these predators take all different shapes and sizes here. It could be owls, snakes, raccoons, you know, it goes, excuse me, on and on. So even if a hen makes it through that initial nesting period, that 28 days, and we found there's, broadly speaking, there's two kinds of hens on either end of the spectrum. The first kind of hen, she sticks really tight on that nest. She is probably more likely, you know, hens like her are more likely to hatch nests, but they're more likely to suffer from predators because they're staying on that nest the whole time. They hold real tight. If you think about a nest site, a lot of predators hunt by scent. And so they stay in that one area for 28 days. A lot of that scent gathers around the nest site. And there's kind of a thinking that, you know, weather can be really important factor in May. If we have a really wet May and those hens are getting soaking wet sitting on the nest, that really keeps the scent right around that nest area and makes it much easier for predators to find the hens. At the other end of the spectrum are those hens that are like, no, I'm going to pack up shop, I'm going to flush, I'm going to get out of here, and I'll live to nest another day. Those hens tend to survive longer, but they tend to hatch fewer birds. And so those are like either ends of the spectrum, and then there's everything in between. But you can imagine the risk that those hens are under for those 28 days. So assuming the eggs hatch, despite being laid, one a day over an 11 or 12-day period, they all hatch within the same relative handful of hours. And within 24 hours of hatching, she's trying to get them out of there because she knows that nest site is polluted with scent. She wants to get them away from that. Ideally, even though she'll take them up to a quarter mile of a day, she's hoping to nest near an edge, near a field or an opening that's going to provide good brood habitat. So hatching a nest is half the battle. The other half is being able to raise that brood of turkeys. Those first 2 weeks of life are when the highest mortality is for those poults. They're small. They don't have their full feather coat. They're just mostly in down feathers. They can't fly, so they're stuck on the ground. And until they can fly and get up into the trees or get up into cover, they're vulnerable to every kind of predator I showed you. So that hen, what she's looking for with brooding habitat, which is where she'll take them to feed, are more open areas. They do need to have some cover component, but they need to have a good forb and herbaceous, plant content that's going to support a lot of insects, because those birds need protein more than anything during the spring to grow. And they grow fast. This is just a comparison chart. If you imagine at 1 week old, they're the size of a sparrow. Within a month, they're the size of a quail. And by 10 weeks old, they're nearly fully grown at the size of a pheasant. So they grow fast, and they need that constant source of protein. Ideally, you want to have your nesting habitat pretty close to your brooding habitat, because the less those birds have to move, the higher quality habitat they have accessible to them, the less they have to move around, because every time you got to move, there's more of a chance of getting picked off. So what does good brood habitat make? These are just two examples. There's everything in between, but think about power line right-of-ways, pollinator habitat like Pam was talking about. Those are the types of things that make really good brood habitat. They say that if you want to know what good brood habitat is, go out into a field, get right down there on your stomach and look around you. Could you imagine being a little bird zipping around those stems and stuff? They need room to move. You can't have like a super dense warm season grass field, right? It's too dense. They need that right mix of open, grassy, weedy area. Same thing as if you laid on your back and you looked around, would there be a tree or a shrub or some kind of cover that you could escape to? If you don't see anything, then they don't have anything to use as escape cover from predators. And the last thing is, if you got up on your knees and looked around, could you see around you? Could you see what's coming? Because the hen needs to be able to see what's going on around her to keep those birds safe. So it's really this right balance of, not too tall, not too thick, and with other kinds of a diversity of habitat in the area and stuff. And I'm spending a lot of time talking about these two things because they are really the critical pieces of the puzzle if you want to do something for turkeys. The other things that you really can't control, I just put these in here and stuff, is just temperature and precipitation. I tell you how much precipitation can influence nest success. It can influence poult survival just as much. If we have a really wet June when all these birds are hatching, they don't have their full feather coat, right? They just have a lot of their down feathers. And if those get wet, those birds can go hyperthermic and die in a 50-degree day. So when you look at weather forecasts, like this past spring, we had a nice dry May, June. This is a perfect conditions for hatch. The previous year, we had a very wet June. I remember looking at the calendar going, oh no, we got like 2 inches of rain in a week and stuff. So those are when you have particularly bad production years. And it doesn't mean all's lost. I mean, turkeys will re-nest. The clutch size will be smaller. Fewer birds will attempt a second nest. But there still is hope. I'm sure some of you guys maybe have noticed poults running around in mid-August and stuff. And that's really a late hatching brood that was probably a second or third nest attempt. So after 14 days, right, these birds can start to fly and hop around a little bit. They can get a little bit of cover and their survival, greatly increases. And you might see, you ever notice you're walking around in a field and you see 2 or 3 hens with like 20 or 30 poults between them and stuff. They tend to congregate in these larger brood flocks because, again, more hens together is more eyes looking for predators, and they can keep all the little babies safe. So the big take home number is 7%, okay? 80% of females will attempt to nest in a given season. Only 20 or 25% of those nests will actually hatch one or more poults. Think about all those predators, bad weather that I showed you. Even of those nests that actually hatch out one poult, or even a group of poults, only 35% of them will have a poult that lives more than a month, okay? So out of all those birds, only 7% of hens on a landscape will have at least one poult survive to the fall. So you can see how much having good quality nesting and quality brooding habitat can make a difference. Now, I'm in a unique situation in my part of the world compared to some of my other counterparts in the East. Our turkey populations, I would say, are doing pretty well. And whether that is because we have better habitat or whether we started our restoration later than other states, you know, maybe their populations have started to settle into some carrying capacity sooner than ours has. I don't know exactly what's going on, but we have seen declines of 40 to 65% of turkeys in some parts of their range. And I'm not talking states that far away. I'm talking about New York and Pennsylvania. And, you know, I think that part of it is maybe their hunting seasons didn't start out as conservative as we were. We were some of the last states to get hunting seasons. And I talked about the spring season and stuff. We tried to time that as late as possible to make sure that those birds had as much of a chance to hatch the next generation as possible. On the other side of the equation is a fall hunting season. These are either a male or female season. You typically find in a lot of states that they have short fall seasons, like maybe only 1 or 2 weeks, because if you overharvest in the fall, you're removing potential hens from the breeding population the following spring. So I think on the whole in New England, we've tried to be really conservative with how we structure our hunting seasons. And as to other stuff, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with our population and stuff. I think it's doing well, but you're seeing declines in dairy farms, those pastures and stuff, you know. When they're spreading manure in the wintertime, we used to call that the hot lunch program for turkeys and stuff, right? Because you just see them crawl into those fields and start pecking away at that waste grain and in that manure and stuff. There's less dairy systems now. Habitat is more fragmented. Our agricultural systems are a lot cleaner and more efficient. There's less waste grain. And I think in some cases we have greater predator populations than we did before. So, I mean, there are some really potential things working against us. And as researchers have started to look at turkey populations, there's growing evidence that nesting in brood habitat especially could be critical pieces of the puzzle. I'm not sure how much of this is applicable to what's going on in our part of the world, but these are things that we're certainly, turkey managers in all New England states are keeping an eye on, because we've seen what can happen in other parts of the country, and we invested a lot of time and energy bringing turkeys back to the Northeast. So, talking a little bit about habitat, you know, what makes good nesting habitat? I mean, I'm sure you guys all have weird stories about busting a turkey, you know, off of her nest in the weirdest place you've ever seen. But in general, they're, you know, in the forest, but not too far from an edge. Open woods generally are better. More daylight on the ground equals better understory. It could be in an old orchard, hay fields, you know, any kind of early successional habitat. You know, young forest habitat, you hear about young forest habitat a lot. This is a habitat initiative we are a partner on that we really support, because those young forest areas, those post clear cut areas, you know, the stem counts, the shrubs that you see form up, the mix of forbs and stuff, you know, depending on what year you are post cut, I mean, that can make either really fantastic brooding habitat or really good nesting habitat. So, you know, I don't want to get too far off topic, but like, there's not a lot of conservation dollars out there to do turkey habitat restoration, right? Because turkeys are doing awesome, and there's so many other species that need help. So when I'm doing habitat projects and I'm seeking out partners, it's for things like, you know, young forest habitat for grouse or woodcock or New England cottontail, or it's, you know, wood turtles, or it's pollinator habitat and stuff. What's good for a lot of those species really benefits turkeys because they are a habitat generalist. You know, typically you see them in forest fields and everything in between. So I'm lucky in that I get to play in a lot of different sandboxes, but, really, I'm very happy with being a part of other conservation efforts because I know that they're going to benefit turkeys. But if you guys are working with landowners and they're looking for things to do, if you can do things like edge feathering, anything to soften that hard edge between a field and forest, that increases, that shrubby understory component that's going to make good escape cover and for broods, or it's going to make decent nesting habitat. Those are things we want to do. Anything you're doing to make habitat piles with all that, those tree branches or crowns and stuff, if you're doing thinnings and that sort of thing, pile it up. Great for turkeys, great for rabbits, a whole bunch of other stuff. Forest openings. This is something where we've done a lot of work with our Forest Service partners on the Green Mountain National Forest, and then we have some planned work in the White Mountain National Forest to go in and masticate some of these openings that have grown up, because forest openings, in small amounts really add to the diversity of the forested landscape and promote, a lot of food resources for a lot of different wildlife. And then, depending on if you have landowners that are interested in doing more dedicated plantings, whether it's annual food plots or perennial food plots, we have seed programs where we discount the cost of seed to NWTF members. And I mean, this year is a little bit different, but in an average year, we sell, a 70-pound bag of clover for $35 to an NWTF member and stuff. So, if you have landowners that are interested in doing food plots, I mean, we have mixes that we can work with them on. Even if you have projects like you're doing a timber cut and you have a log landing, those are great areas to go in and seed with a food plot mix, something that maybe has a high clover content. Even like your normal Agway conservation seed mix can provide pretty decent brood habitat because it's got a good mix of clover and grasses. And they can, if they're maintained properly, mowing, lime, fertilizer and stuff, you can get 5 or 7 years out of a good clover food plot. And just lastly about pollinator habitat, this is something that we started getting into in my area, a few years ago, working with some different states that, are not interested in doing dedicated, traditional food plots. It just doesn't jive with their philosophy on things. But, the opportunity to do more native pollinator plots, which are, really glorified native food plots in my eyes, those are fantastic for turkey. And they're fantastic for butterflies, beads, and a bunch of other birds. And so, I think that could be potentially an avenue where we could work together in the future if there's a need and a desire to. Mast trees. I mean, you guys know that oaks, hard mast and soft mast really drive a lot of the fall and winter food availability for birds. So especially turkeys and deer. Going out there doing forest stand improvement, mast tree release work, that's super great for turkeys, and super great for landowners who want to increase value on some of their trees. So then the traditional apple tree release, we've done a lot of this. This is a great thing to rally volunteers around. So many of these woods have these remnant orchards that need a lot of love to bring back. Going in and either doing daylighting or doing pruning to increase the vitality and productivity of those trees. Fantastic food source for turkeys, because when I start to rank the factors that affect turkey populations, I got nesting habitat, I got brood habitat, and then I have winter severity and food availability during the fall and the winter. So anything that we can do with landowners to help promote those types of food sources is a win-win for turkeys. I think my slides might be out of order. You guys all know what mast tree release is, but just how important these are for some of those species. And then diversity of food sources is best. So when you have years where certain mass production is off, some of that can be made up with some of the soft mass that's available in the fall. Things like dogwoods, viburnums, chokeberries and stuff. Sometimes we're able to offer plantings for that, but I think, oftentimes with the native plant sales you guys are doing, you're offering some species that have tremendous benefits for turkeys as well. And then, springs and seeps, any opportunities to protect them, I think can be important for turkeys. Winter severity, when you get really thick snow, if it's that nice, thick, fluffy snow, turkeys can't get through that. If you got a good hard crust snow, turkeys have less trouble getting around in the woods and finding those food sources. But in a hard winter, springs and seeps can be really important because they tend to be the areas that have less amount of snow, and they tend to be the areas that green up first, or they have those ferns, those fronds that turkeys will feed on if they need different kinds of food sources. And heck, they probably eat frogs too. I mean, honestly, turkeys will eat almost anything. So, springs and seeps, I think, are really important. Basically in closing, I know this is kind of like a whirlwind tour turkeys, but I just kind of wanted to, give you guys a glimpse at how we're looking at the world, how we're looking at opportunities and stuff. Getting in front of you guys is tremendous, and I really appreciate, Dick letting let me come out and talk. I hope that you guys won't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be real interested in speaking with you in each of your districts to see what kind of opportunities and challenges you guys have, where there might be funding sources that we can go after. As you can imagine, COVID hit us pretty hard as a conservation or as a nonprofit conservation organization that can't do fundraising during COVID and stuff. But we know we're going to come out on the other side of this. And I think some of you, if you've had a chance to meet Ben, that's working out of the Grafton office, Ben's part of our national partnership with NRCS that's focused really on providing technical assistance, on forestry with an eye towards wildlife, which I think has tremendous potential and opportunity. So we're really happy to have him. And, please feel free to reach out to either of us, and I may be following up with some of you individually. So with that, I'll take any questions, and my contact information is up here as well.
I don't see any questions in the chat. Do people have live questions for Matt now? It was really fascinating to see your presentation technique, Matt, to see symbolic photos and the way you could really speak from your experience and expertise to the slides we saw. I really appreciated your presentation.
I know I talked fast on this one, but I think Dick told me I had 20 minutes and he was going to cut me off. So.
No, he was enthralled. It was all right. I didn't see him playing Yahtzee or anything. He said, "You're all right."
So
Wow.
just a quick question. How, for the cover for the young broods, you were talking about them, in May and June, but like an orchard or someplace like that, if you were going to leave the grass long, would that be like through into July?
I think
cover they-
did I mute myself? No, okay. I think that the traditional guidance, we offer for delayed mowing, till August 15th is really what I would offer to folks. Because there's going to be other stuff that we're going to want to, give a chance to pull off a nest. And so using those general guidance of August 15th, while most of your broods are already, hatched and mobile and all that stuff, I think that kind of covers you for those folks that are most interested in doing the right thing.
Great, thank you.
I was kind of curious, in your experience, do you have folks, what kind of wildlife are folks most interested in doing things for? Is it for everything? Are there specific species that you find generate a lot of interest amongst landowners?
The endangered species we got a lot of funding for that. That's where the money was. And they're mostly early successional. So anything that liked early successional habitats did fine with the management programs we were putting in.
I think in our experience in the Lakes region, I think people have a broad interest in all kinds of wildlife, including a lot of interest in pollinators.
We do have a few nursery and greenhouses that put together some really nice packages of live plants for homeowners or people with large lots and whatnot that they really bill as turkey attractors too. So
Okay.
there's an awareness
That's
about the viburnum and the things that go together that could soften the edges of your property to what's been cleared on your previous lot to a forest or a thicket.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
in the past, our plant sales have had, turkey packages that we
Okay.
coordinated with you folks on.
Okay.
There is a comment pertinent to that, Matt, in the chat. Matt says, we're working with Belknap County on an initiative to improve native brook trout habitat. So that answers what else are people interested in our experiences.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Woody Amendment stuff for trout right now is really hot, and I think things like we're doing a project. I got a small grant with the Arbor Day Foundation to do some repairing and restoration work on the Otter Creek in Vermont, and that's another case where the primary benefits are really centered around water quality, but you guys know those riparian buffers tend to get nice and thick and weedy, and those can make really good nesting cover as well, especially in the in that 5 to 10 year range and stuff. So that's kind of how we have to look at it. We have to look at things opportunistically and stuff. What can we do? What's the overarching goal, but how can we enhance it for turkeys as well?
We just did at Gunstock Mountain Resort, we helped them do a revised forest management plan, and this year we did 2 wildlife openings for woodcock, and one of them has a remnant orchard in it, and I think they'll be good for turkey habitat because we've got a pretty large forested cover, so those openings are going to make it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I said turkeys have a home range of like 1,000 acres and stuff. So obviously, most landowners can't do everything for the turkey, right? But they can have a piece of the puzzle on the landscape and stuff. So it's not just what they can do, but what's going on their neighbor's property that might help dictate what the best practice would be. And, that's no news to you guys, but just certainly something to think about when talking about it.
I've got my own herd of 25 right now.
Yeah, those turkeys certainly had no problems adjusting to backyard bird feeders, did they?
Wow. Well, hearty applause. This has been really fascinating. Truly, thank you for your time now. It was too bad about the last time when the weather affected it, but this is really well worth waiting for. Thank you so much, Matt. And people got his contact information, or you can get a hold of Richard Lutz or I. We can get you his contact information, and I'm sure he'd welcome. I loved in your presentation when you said you're looking for partnerships and ways to do some cooperation, and that's what these programs are all about, is knitting people together and looking for those relationships. So
thank you very much, Chris. I
you
appreciate it.
got the message. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. All right, we have Heron Pond Farm with Kelsey McDonald. This came about because we have an ongoing effort to improve digital awareness and internet presence and some social media and some communications efforts with all the districts and the public and the constituents. So we're thrilled to have Kelsey with us. Kelsey studied nutrition and eco-gastronomy at UNH through 2016. Her passion is for sharing and promoting local, healthy, and nutrient-dense food. She manages a 600 people in a year-round CSA and farmers markets. Those include customer communications, in-person and digitally through newsletters, social posts, website contents, and other marketing efforts. She's with Heron Pond Farm, and they've increased their CSA program to include multiple add-on share options, making it easier to get most of your food locally and in this one place. Heron Pond's been very conscientious about COVID safety measures and protocols since the beginning of the pandemic in the spring. Kelsey's been working as a part of the Heron Pond Farm since 2013, and so in these 7 years, her role has developed into CSA and Farmers Market Manager. She's taken on managing the web presence and social media over the last few years. Kelsey tells us she didn't have formal training in this, but her experiences shine through the work she does for Heron Pond Farm. She tells us she's interested and continues to learn from friends in the industry, workshops, and more. Kelsey, we're thrilled to have you here sharing with us your experiences so that we can all increase our digital presence and learn a little bit from your successes for Heron Pond and your own philosophy about the digital work you do. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen, and if you can't see it, feel free to let me know in the chat, and I will see what I can do.
The screen share goddess is not with you yet.
Okay, one moment. Share desktop. Share.
There you go. The screen does begin and we see the smaller slides down the left.
Okay, present. Okay, are you seeing my PowerPoint and my Zoom?
There's your full screen, your welcoming social media marketing slide
Okay.
for Heron Pond Farm.
Awesome. So, just a title page, and I manage our website and Instagram and Facebook, but there's been requests to share with a highlight on our Instagram, so that's what I put together. Our followers have grown recently, but when starting an Instagram or focusing on increasing your followers, it's important to have a brief but to the point bio or about section. So in ours, we say building community through local agriculture. That's kind of our tagline, and our locations. And it's important to make yourself recognizable by putting your logo or another highlightable picture as your profile. We do a lot of tomato production this summer in our shares, in our markets, and wholesale. So we put a heart tomato there. Might put it back to our logo at some point. And then there's a lot of benefits to setting up a business profile. You get a little bit more insight about who is looking at your profile versus a profile personal page. So you'll get to see the age, the country, the town, the gender, the people who are looking at your profile, who unfollows you, who follows you, and some quality graphs. So if you are a nonprofit or business or other non-personal use, there's definitely benefits of starting with a business account and more contact information, etc. So definitely a good tool. It's free. You can put money into it, but you don't really need to. Yeah, a lot of people are on their phone these days, especially with COVID. Everyone's turning to the digital to connect with each other, just as we are now. So why? What are your goals? For us, we not only want to sell our product, but want to kind of connect with the viewers for our hours and what we have available when, posting if a new crop is available, but also some behind the scenes. As you can see the last photo in the top corner, we don't have that greens product yet available, but it keeps everyone engaged. It's a pretty picture. And then the second picture to the right is a picture of the farm stand that we posted just before Thanksgiving saying, come on in. So keeping everyone up to date on when we're open and what we have is important, but also the algorithm notices when more people engage and post. So keeping frequent posts available is important without always being salesy or always come to my event type of thing. So I try to do a good mix of information. For example, the leak post not only shared that we had leaks, but some ideas of what to do with leaks and how to store them, besides just come by them. So as you interact with the page as a top, just like I showed in the previous slide, it can lead you to the business's website. So at the top is a link, and then the contact page has our email and phone number so they can easily find us besides just this one platform. And as you can see, sometimes I've posted just a picture and multiple pictures. As you can see in the top left corners, those are multiple pictures. So the more time that someone is spending on your post, the Instagram notices and will spread it to more people. So the algorithm will send it out to about 5 to 10% of your viewers. And if it gets good likes and comments and time viewed on your page, it'll send it out to about 20% of your viewers and further and further. So if people are spending more time flipping through pictures, watching a video, or reading comments, that all helps. So as you'll see later, we did a giveaway at one point, and then more people commented and tagged people to not only bring awareness but also share.
We lost your voice.
So it's not going to change your behavior too much, but helpful information. Fortunately, most people we have here are in US, but I had a couple viewers in Canada, maybe someone's family member or someone moved away, etc. It's important to know we have a more farmers market presence in Portsmouth, so it's good to see that that's hitting the viewers as well. I'll post about our CSA, about our farm stand, about our product, and when we are at market. So as I mentioned before, they can interact with you right there. They can message you, but it's also important that they can find you off of this platform, such as going to your website to learn more. Oftentimes, I will post, or a lot of other people will post, see link in bio, and that will bring them to our website. Some people will post a link tree, or I've created a new page on the website with multiple tabs or links to other pages on the website. So not only is it one page that you're bringing them to, but a new menu of links. So that way they can learn about, oh, I went to go to their website, but now link to their CSA is right in my face. They also have a link to our physical address that can link to Google Maps right then and there with one click, as well as our email and phone number. So it is all easy. They don't have to copy and paste anything. And when setting up a page, it's important to make yourself easy to find. So your username is also called your handle. Ours is just our business name. If that's taken, you can abbreviate or use an underscore, punctuation. But people will just usually search what they know without having to go there somewhere else and find that specific item, name, etc. How else can they find you? Some other pages may tag you, and that's an easy way. Sometimes we'll tag other people that we have in our farm stand or that we have partnerships with or at farmers market with. So that's definitely a good way to share each other's posts as well. And the more presence you have, Instagram will suggest followers or suggest you to friends of your current followers. So it all helps so others can find you. Sometimes other businesses will do a giveaway, such as a local cafe who buys our product wholesale recently did a giveaway with one of our gift cards, and some people who follow them but hadn't yet followed us began following us. So that is a good way to partner and advertise in a different way than just doing a sponsored post. Sponsored posts are also helpful. And you can target very specific people, age, gender, area, interest. As I mentioned before, the algorithm will spread your posts to certain people, but you may follow hundreds or thousands of people, and they're not always going to come up on the top of your feed. But Instagram stories are a great way to be at the top of your viewers' feed when they're clicking through for easy information. So stories are at the top of the screen. So I don't have a graphic for this one, but you can click through and they're very easy to share. For example, we have fish vendors who share sell their product in our parking lot. They oftentimes will share a story that they're selling out of our space, and then we will repost, and Instagram will give us that option in a one-click button. So don't even need to do anything extra. And then we're advertising for them, they're advertising for us. And also you can save those stories in a highlight at the top, but between your bio and your feed. So that way, if you are, say, posting about a
Can't hear you now.
Kelsey, I don't know if you can hear us, but you are now, we see your cursor moving, but we can't hear you.
Oh, let me see.
There you
what I
go.
can do.
You're back.
Am I back? Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't know when I glitched out, but let me know if the last thing you heard.
We were able to save stories.
Oh, okay, yeah, and those go into the highlight, so you can have your viewers see those later on. If they weren't on their phones or they're new to following you, they can still catch up on that information. They're active to you for 24 hours, but your viewers for 24 hours, but saved in your archive, so you can pull those out and post your highlights later on, so they're not completely lost. But they're a good time to post like things you're doing or active videos. Overall, you want to be visually compelling. A lot of people just quickly scroll and don't always read a big block of information. So you want to post something that they want to stop at and read. Your first two lines are what will come up, and then they can click read more if they're interested in learning more about what you have going on. So for example, putting something in bold, such as you're doing a giveaway and you're learning more, or you have an event coming up, see details below, is a great eye-catching post. Otherwise, they wouldn't know that good stuff is a few lines below. And sometimes you want to put a whole story in there, and other times you want to space it out, so it's just a few lines at a time, so if they're scrolling, it's still very easy to read, and they don't miss what you're trying to say. So the captions, you can post up to 2,200 characters, but it's important to space it out rather than just solely a block of text. Hashtags, when you are posting a hashtag, this will show you how many are posted. So you want something that people can find you by, but not hundreds of thousands of posts. Otherwise, it'll get buried very quickly, because hashtags are something you can search, but you don't want just a few. Otherwise, they will not be something that people are looking for. And you don't want to necessarily just post and leave. If you are engaging with other people's posts, that will help everyone. Because if you engage and then other people engage with your post, that will help both of your algorithms. You like and tag each other's posts and maybe even share your stories, as we sometimes fill up in our CSA and share when others have spots. That helps each other out. As you can see in the image to the left, we did a giveaway recently and multiple people tagged their friends and therefore scrolled through to see and post at the bottom. That got us more followers and people knowing about what we have going on. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I just want to go through some basics without too specifics about the algorithm or anything like that. But feel free to let me know if anything was unclear. I just want to keep everyone engaged while scrolling and hopefully sharing and tagging each other's friends, etc. Because sometimes people will join us for a share first stop in our farm stand and will say, how'd you hear about us? Sometimes it is online, and sometimes they say, you know, through Instagram, someone told me about you. And so it's good to know what works and how people are engaged.
Anybody have any questions right off the bat for Kelsey? I think one of the strengths of the Heron Pond site is, like you talked about the leak picture, Kelsey. So there's the leaks, but it's also now what can you do with them? And I'm thinking that for conservation districts, we have a chance to say, well, here's a certain tool, what can you do with it? Here's a certain piece of equipment, what can you do with it? And as we get into now, we saw today the state reps just gathered, they reconvened, they're getting their committee assignments. And I think it's going to be important for conservation districts to think of Instagram as a way that there's 435 people spread across all these counties that can quick and easy, down and dirty, get in there and see what the conservation districts are doing with the model like Kelsey is talking about. So it's getting business, but it's also getting people to feel like there's a sense of pride or ownership, being able to say, like, I know Heron Pond. I think you've done an excellent job with the site there, Kelsey.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great way to connect and integrate behind the scenes pictures and videos.
Other questions for Kelsey? You know how to find her now. She's told us 100 times in this presentation. Heron Pond Farm.
Yeah, and you can send messages too, not just comments. So easy
Right.
there.
Could I ask you a question, Kelsey?
Sure.
Do you have Facebook also?
Yes, that's a great question. We also have Facebook, and one easy thing that I do is I connect the Facebook and the Instagram. So when I'm posting on Instagram, I'm posting simultaneously to our Facebook.
Ooh, that's awesome. Where do you find that you have the most followers? Do you have the most followers on Facebook or Instagram?
Honestly, I don't know how many followers we have on Facebook right now, but I think some people have one or the other. Some people definitely have both, but it's a great, posting to both at the same time is a great way to get both without having to do extra work. I'm sorry, I don't know how many we have on each at the moment.
On Facebook, you guys have 4,547 people that like you.
So we have a little bit more on Facebook. I think it's around 3,400 something on Instagram.
Nice. So would you suggest having both of them is very good?
Yeah, I think it's a great, easy tool, especially when you can do both at the same time. Yes, I have to check and reply to comments and direct messages on both, but I find it's pretty easy and direct. And sometimes when we have something going on, such as an early bird CSA sale, I will sponsor a post, but most of the time it's pretty free, and it's a little bit of time that it takes to post and whatnot. Yeah, I think both is helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Any
Well, it's
other
been a
questions?
very long day for you, Kelsey. We can't thank you enough for closing out the CSA business, sitting right there outside. Heat lamp or not, it's a long day for you. So thank you for being part of our program tonight. Really special. Thank you.
Yeah, and feel free to send us an email or message if anyone has questions.
Perfect. All right. What do you say, Dick Lutz? Do we have other information from the group? Then thank you for this. Dick, you're on mute. Nope, unmute. No, we still can't hear you, Dick. International symbol for mute. No, Dick, not yet. We still can't hear you.
Okay,
There you
how's
go.
that?
There you
All right.
go.
All right, we got some technical difficulties we have to overcome. How
I'm
about,
telling you, it's the Zoom goddess is just all kind of fired up tonight.
okay, can we see this?
I believe so.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank Matt and Pam and Kelsey tonight. There's a lot of good things going on around in conservation in New Hampshire, and it's time to stop being the best kept secret and become loud and proud of what we do. And the Instagram is one of those tools that we can show people what we do. It's time to toot our horn. Okay, coming up in January, Stratford County will be in the spotlight. Elena Warren is the district manager there. We have Dana Truslow, who's going to talk about permeable reactive barriers. And that is a way of taking nitrogen out of the groundwater before it enters a surface water. So that's an experiment that we've done in Rockingham County, and we're willing to share that with everybody. And next month, we have Trout Unlimited with Tom Ives, another conservation organization that we've had partnerships with in some of the districts. And that goes well with the turkey. You know, if we have more turkeys and more trout, that's a great thing for New Hampshire. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you next month. And hopefully we'll get our information straight before we send it out instead of sending out corrupted addresses. Good night, all.
Nice to see everyone. Bye now.